The HALLOWFALL crystal explained. This changes everything. Alright, are we getting debated right now by Doran? Or has this man figured out what this crystal really is? Let's find out here.
Did you know that originally, when the universe was born, gigantic shards of light crashed into planets and sparked life, and we could be dealing with a crystal older than Azeroth itself. However, on closer examination, you can see Naru-shaped runes on this crystal, which could indicate that not only is this a massive ship that crashed into Azeroth, but this could be the site of a forgotten light invasion of Azeroth that was deleted from history. In fact, we have seen a crystal this size once in the past. Remember Genedar?
That's right. I forgot Draenor. There was this giant crystal in Nagrand always. Yeah, I forgot about that.
It was on the other side, not in the ground. But if it was in a cave, it would function exactly the same as the sun. Even more interestingly, the Naru of Genedar darkened and turned into the Dark Star. And not only is this crystal in Khazakar darkening as well, but it was worded that the humans got a vision of a star, which means this could be the exact same scenario. So what even is this crystal?
Interesting. And there's even the runes on the ground beneath this thing. I forgot all about this thing.
So what even is this crystal? What is going on? Let's look at all the evidence that we can work with.
Yeah, so Doran might be onto something here.
But you have trouble sticking with it? Well, the folks over at Boot.dev believe that the best way to learn is to never get bored.
That's right, Boot.dev.
Red Robin from start to finish in Python and Go programming languages, all through a self-paced RPG game-like learning system. Boot.dev is designed to get you writing a ton of
Isn't the crystal linked to the ethereal? Which ethereal? What are you talking about? I don't think there's been any lore connection between the crystal and ethereals at this point. I mean, it's not crazy to think, but I haven't seen anything about that.
Is what unlocks interactivity in the game that comes with it, but you can start off right now. However, if you do decide to spend money, there is a 30-day no questions asked refund policy. That is just how confident they are in Boot.dev. So click the link in the description and use code DON'sMovies and you will get 25% off your first payment. That is 25% off your first month or your first year, depending on the subscription that you choose. So start gaming. And
ethereals are surrounding it. Well, I don't know if that means there's a connection or they're just attracted to it.
Potentially the most interesting part of the war within is going to be that massive crystal.
They could just be interested. Ethereals could just be interested in the crystal, just like everyone else is right now.
That is stuck in one of the layers of Khazakar, and it not only connects the Arathi Empire lore and light as a cosmological force, but also Xaladat as the main character and the void corruption she's bringing right now to Khazakar. So as soon as this was announced, the most popular theory was that this was
you're talking about the crystal in Nagrand. Yes, they did used to be around it all the time. Yeah, I think they were grabbing power from it or something at one point. But yes, yeah, you're talking about the Nagrand ones, 100%.
Sword of
she had an ass neck, which she did.
I gotta say, would actually be really cool. Imagine if the other part of the sword that we didn't see provided like a huge sun for a brand new civilization, but obviously that is not the case because this crystal has been here for a really long time. What makes this entire matter incredibly confusing though is that it only states that at some point the Arathi heard a falling star that fell and reached Khazakar, but it didn't state that this is when the star.
The Arathi, the paladins who came down here didn't just see the crystal come down. They actually dreamt about it. They had dreams about this falling star, as they described it, and that's what led them down here to find the crystal.
Fell, so we don't know if they followed it as it was falling, as the star could have really fallen hundreds of thousands of years ago before life even became a thing on Azeroth, or it could have also happened a few hundred years ago. However, luckily we do have some clues, so we're not entirely just guessing in the dark here. There have been some hints and theories that this might be related to the sun, as this crystal functions as the sun, and
it could
be something that we have never seen before, but let's be real, it is like 99% certain that this is Naru related. This is for two major factors. One is that paladins, light followers, got this vision and came to this place to examine it, and second is that it started turning into the void, which is exactly what the Naru tend to do. However, how this Naru light being spaceship got into Azeroth is going to determine the entire course of the World Soul Saga. At the moment, it could either be an ancient light invasion of Azeroth that we never knew about, which is very likely. It could be the most ancient remnant of the formation of Azeroth and the cosmos, think about it being as old as the World Soul itself, if not older, or it could be a recent probe mission of the light that we never learned about.
That makes sense, actually. It could be a probe mission by the light, where maybe the light shoots these crystals out and they land on planets and they try to infect it with the light kind of thing. I mean, that's what the old gods are. The old gods are just like these projectiles that are shot out by the void, where they try to take over planets via them. They're actually shot out, it's been confirmed, in any direction. They're not targeted in any way, and then old gods kind of just land on planets and infect them, and they're shot out by the void. So, I mean, this crystal could be the light's version of an old god, maybe.
The really interesting theory that this is the shard. We actually do have some supporting evidence, actually quite a bit of supporting evidence that comes directly from the Chronicle. Now, I know the Chronicle is about as clear as the fog right now, as it was said to be from a Titan perspective, but there are definitely some truths to it. We were told that the cosmos itself was born in a massive cataclysm. As Chronicle stated, there was a massive clash of the light and the void, and at the cataclysmic birth of the cosmos, shards of fractured light were sent flying through the universe, suffusing the newly formed planets with a spark of life and giving birth to countless life forms, the most common of them being the primordial elementals. Occasionally, these shards of light would gather and form clouds of light from which powerful beings would gather, one of these beings being the very powerful Naru. Now, be very mindful of the wording here. The planets existed before this, but it was the light that apparently created life, according to the Chronicle. Potentially, it could have given life to the World Soul itself. Now, keep in mind, shards of fractured light. So, imagine very sharp, massive objects that crashed into planets. The Chronicle used suffusing the planets with a spark of life, meaning it spread life into the planet. However, think about what exactly happened to these shards. It was never actually explained. Did the planet just absorb them, or did they just remain in the parts of the planet, like underground parts of the planet that we never actually see? Could this crystal be the original shard, or maybe just kind of landed wrong? It didn't really hit the mark, so that is why it still exists up to this day. Keep the information we have from the War Within in mind. Khazlagar is a relatively small zone.
Yeah, it's interesting to think like how many of these would have hit. If a lot of them hit, where have they gone? That's what I know what he's talking about. But to me, if this theory makes sense, it would only take like one shard to infect a planet or try to change it over to the light. So maybe this one that we're going to discover, and the one in Nagrand obviously is not on our planet, but that's the one over there. So maybe just each planet has its own. You know, it's just shot out.
It is all zones, one under the other.
But if the old god theory is true, well, we got a bunch of those. So there could be more than one shard in any single planet, I guess, too.
What is really interesting is that this crystal is not at the surface, it is just one zone above the lowest most layer, Aska head, but it is below the ringing deeps. This means that the crystal definitely penetrated, but it didn't hit hard enough to get into Azeroth. What is also really interesting is that Khazlagar was originally called Sector AR-938, which during the time of the Titans was apparently a geological anomaly inside of a fissure. Personally, my theory is that the fissure was created when Amantul ripped out the first ever world tree created by Elune called Eluna here, but it was purposefully planted here right at the spot, as remember what the Chronicle said. These light crystals were essentially sources of life. Maybe the crystal was successful, but then the tree was planted on it, and when the tree was ripped out, the crystal was exposed, and that is why we are now able to access it. However, keep in mind, this is just one of the theories. The theory that the crystal is as ancient as the planet itself, and that it arrived here when the universe was born. I think the other theory is actually more likely. Now, I want you to look at the crystal itself, not the trailer from a distance, because there it just looks like a massive light crystal. Now, I'm talking about a zoomed in image where the entire thing really looks like a construct, like something that was built. I'd imagine if
when I've seen zoomed in images, you definitely see the like Naru-esque engravements on it, and that's what made me think, oh, maybe this thing does have to do with that.
Dealing with a primordial crystal that is as old as the universe, it would look more natural, just a pure shard of the light. However, the crystal itself looks designed. I mean, you can clearly see runes that are sort of resembling the shape of the Naru, as well as various ornaments on it that are very, very similar to Naru ships. From this information comes the theory that this could be a Naru ship, or even more interestingly, a Naru invasion ship from a forgotten attack on Azeroth that we never knew about in the past. Now, I want you to look look at a few pictures of Draenei ships, in particular you got the Xenadar or the Vindicar, runes on the inside and some parts of the inside look very similar, but you might think this might not
If
be.
you look at a Draenei ship, they really are just a giant crystal with constructs built around it. Any of these Draenei ships look like that. They're just like, at their core, they're just a massive crystal, and then the Draenei have built things around it to help it fly and everything else, and they use the crystal to power the mechanisms that they basically put around it. So, I mean, this thing could be a ship where all the mechanisms have fallen away already.
A few pictures of Draenei ships, in particular you got the Xenadar or the Vindicar, runes on the inside and some parts of the inside look very similar, but I think this might not be it. However,
DK Myth, I don't think that's a Luna here that was planted there. I think there was a different tree over there, but you're right. I think it does have to do with some world tree.
keep in mind, we don't know what we're looking at with the crystal. It could literally just be 10% of the whole structure, or it could be the entire thing. You can see that most Draenei ships have this giant crystal of sorts, and this could be that, just turned the other way around. Also, Draenei ships we encountered in the past.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just a giant crystal. That's all this thing is. It's a giant crystal with things built around the crystal itself. There's nothing crazy about it. They just built the design to ship around
in the past are really not that big. I mean, most are just small expedition vessels. Imagine if the light as a cosmological force was really invested into Azeroth, which I think they are, and they know how important it is. They would send in the big boys, the biggest ship that they have at their disposal. In fact, we had already actually seen a giant crystal once in the past known as Oshogun on Draenor. It looked like a mountain. A lot of people believed it was a mountain. It was a bit different from other ships, and it was pretty much turned to the other side. But imagine if Oshogun was the other way around and we were seeing the crystal from inside a cave. I mean, you can see that it would have the exact same effect. And keep in mind, the Draenei ship from Draenor is also limited by old graphics, so it is really kind of hard to compare them with the current graphics. Now, what is very interesting
But again, it's another Draenei ship. I'm starting to think more and more that this thing was part of a ship.
That usually these light dimensional ships are operated by Naru, and guess what the Naru do? They do exactly what is happening right now in the world within. They start turning into beings of the void. We actually have an example with the exact same crystal I just mentioned. Oshogun was in fact the spaceship known as Genadar, and a Naru, Kara, was inside, and as the Naru got injured, it started turning into the void. Here's an even more interesting fact. Kara then became known as the Dark Star. Keep in mind, the word star is from the BlizzCon description. We were told that the Arathi got visions of a falling star. Visions are also very interesting, as that is what the light does. They always operate on visions. That is why Velen is the prophet. Personally, I think these visions are just mind control that the light uses for its followers, but they definitely do give their follower visions. Now, you might think, why would the light invade us? Aren't they the good guys? And by all the current lore evidence, not really, but kinda, sorta. First of all, Prime Naru tried to convert the Elden by force, then they had enslaved and conquered the entirety of alternate Draenor, and even more interestingly, we had seen the site of one light invasion in the past, back in the Shadowlands. The Naru apparently discovered a mission that Denetrius sent, so they sent a revenge attack, and they had permanently damaged a huge part of the zone, also giving the entire place a pretty good sun effect. Of course, this was a realistically justified attack, but the wording where they said that they were putting people in their place kinda shows you that the light are definitely doing their own thing. They're not really just benevolent. Now, another interesting thing, as I stated multiple times, these humans are uber paladins of another human kingdom we're yet to discover, potentially Neveloran, potentially very close to Kazakar. The Naru might have needed help for their mission on Kazakar, and these humans were the closest ones to this crash site, and they knew they were their followers, so that is why they started giving them visions and led them to build an entire civilization around their ship. Keep in mind, there is an entire Nerubian civilization right below this place, and it is very likely that the Void has been trying to destroy this crystal. Here's what I find really interesting.
Right, every time that, if you don't know about the zone already, every time that crystal goes into Void form, the Nerubians invade again, and we have to push back that invasion. So yeah, they're definitely after the crystal.
Said that the Nerubians had battled the Arathi for centuries, which might give you the theory that the Naru brought the humans to defend them against the Nerubians. However, Blizzard had removed this 2 weeks after it was posted, and they completely changed the description. It is possible that the crystal was powerful just in itself, and these void beings couldn't even come close, which is why now, empowered by Xel'Natet, they decided to pick a different strategy to convert it, darken it, and then they're going to invade in full force, which is pretty much the storyline we were told is going to happen in the war within. What is bit
yeah.
confusing,
The Nerubians attacking the crystal, the people of the light pushing back. All of this is happening underground. It is a war within. There you go.
is the entire
It all makes
crystal
sense.
and the fact that it is turning. As I previously stated, Naru are usually inside these ships, and it's not the ships that turn, but instead it is the Naru themselves. However, Naru themselves are formed from shards of light, as like it also previously stated.
like
Maybe
that.
this Naru is very connected to this crystal. It is like an outer shell, or maybe the entire crystal is in fact both a Naru and a ship at the same time, like this crystal is the Naru. An interesting thing is that the Naru turn into void beings, as we have seen this on multiple occasions. However, it usually happens when they're injured. Zelda definitely knows about this mechanism. I mean, she previously stated that the Naru are their long-lost brethren and that will soon return to the true path of the void. These Nerubians have probably been hiding for ages here, and they were very scared of this crystal. And then Zelda came in, she's like, I know what Draco's do, how to deal with this crystal, and she might have injured the Naru from the other zone.
Maybe.
Just keep in mind, the crystal is in the second lowest layer from below, so overall, until we actually get into the zone and get more hints, we can only speculate. However, by the way this is set up, and by the fact that the Void Invasion at midnight is going to be Naru related, this crystal is going to be the focal point of the entire World Soul Saga.
Right.
Thank you for watching. Check out the new evidence for the Warcraft movie 2 happening soon, and check out my video on ancient Greek colonies in Spain by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
Interesting takes, and actually not that far-fetched. Like, at first, when he was talking about early in the video, I was like, you know, there's not much here. And then we started to get into the whole thing about the crystal being part of an ancient ship, right? A Naru-powered ship, just like we see the Draenei use. And maybe just the ship bits have fallen off, and now all we have left is the crystal. It's an interesting theory, and it's actually one that I think could certainly be true. And the fact that the crystal called upon the people of who are now the people of HALLOWFALL to come and help protect it makes a lot of sense. This could be true. Yeah, good video from Doran.